Okay, let's dive into a political idea that once you see it, you'll start seeing it everywhere. It's called the Overton Window, and it explains a lot of the baffling things we see happening in politics.
You know the feeling, right? You're watching the news and some politician proposes something so completely out there, so extreme, you know it has absolutely zero chance of ever becoming law. And you're just left scratching your head thinking, are they completely out of touch with reality? What if it's not a mistake? What if that shocking, impossible idea isn't actually meant to pass at all? What if it's a tool, a weapon, that is designed to be rejected?
And this quote really hits the nail on the head. See, the goal isn't always about winning today's argument. It's about fundamentally changing what we can even argue about tomorrow.
So let's solve this puzzle. Is it just madness, or is there a real method to it all? The answer, it turns out, is in a kind of secret playbook for political change. And here it is. This playbook is a concept called the Overton Window, and you can think of it as a map of what's considered politically possible at any given time. At its core, the Overton window is just the range of ideas that the public finds acceptable. A politician who wants to get reelected pretty much has to propose policies that fall inside this window. If they go too far outside of it, they're going to get labeled an extremist, and they'll probably lose their job. Now, what's really fascinating is how an idea travels. It doesn't just appear out of nowhere. Every idea starts somewhere on this spectrum. It can begin its life as unthinkable, a total taboo. Then maybe it becomes radical, something only fringe groups are talking about. But over time, it can move to acceptable, then sensible, popular, and finally, it becomes actual law. The entire game of politics is really about pushing your idea up that ladder. And this shows you exactly how that journey looks with real examples. A slogan like defund the police. When that first hit the scene in 2020, it landed squarely in the unthinkable box for most people. Or the Green New Deal, which was seen as pretty radical when it was first proposed. And then you have something like school vouchers, which spent years and years slowly moving from just acceptable into the sensible column, where now it's a totally mainstream debate. So if the rule is to stay inside the window, why on earth would anyone propose something unthinkable? Well, this is where the strategy gets really clever and a little cynical. The goal isn't to work within public opinion anymore. The goal is to manipulate it, to actually stretch and move the window itself. The secret sauce here is a little quirk of the human brain, a cognitive bias called the anchoring heuristic. Basically, our brains tend to latch onto the very first piece of information we hear. That becomes our anchor, and every other judgment we make is in relation to that starting point. Let's make this super simple. Imagine the current policy is at position 0. Your actual secret goal is to pass a new policy that's at position 5. But right now, compared to 0, 5 seems pretty extreme, right? So what do? You don't propose 5. Nope. You go out there and you propose something way out at position 10, a truly crazy idea that you know has no chance of passing. And just like that, the entire frame of the debate shifts. All of a sudden, your real goal, position 5, doesn't look so radical anymore. In fact, compared to that insane proposal at 10, 5 looks like a perfectly reasonable compromise. For example, proposing a giant coast-to-coast border wall might be the anchor that makes stricter, more militarized enforcement, which used to be controversial, seem like the sensible middle ground. This is a classic move. It's called the door-in-the-face technique. You ask for something huge, knowing you'll get the door slammed in your face. Then, when you come back with your real, smaller request, it seems way more palatable. If you call to abolish the entire Department of Education, well, suddenly, making major budget cuts to it seems like a reasonable compromise to save it. It's a calculated retreat. So, the crazy shock proposal is the battering ram. But that's just the beginning. Let's look at some of the more advanced tools that are used to really stretch that window of what's possible. First up, language itself. The words we choose are never neutral. They're powerful frames that shape how we see the world. And political strategists, like the well-known Frank Luntz, are absolute masters of this. They know that just renaming a policy can move it up or down that ladder of acceptance. I mean, look at this perfect example. Estate tax. That sounds like a dry, technical policy that only affects a few wealthy people. But you rebrand it as the death tax, suddenly it sounds like the government is swooping in to punish a grieving family. That simple word change was wildly successful at turning public opinion against the policy by making it sound immoral. And here's another one. A famous memo advised politicians to stop saying global warming because it sounded catastrophic and implied we needed to do something right now. The advice? Start using climate change instead. It sounds more passive, maybe even natural, and much less threatening. The whole point was to dial down the urgency and keep strict regulations from ever looking sensible.
Now, this next tactic is a little counterintuitive. It's called the radical flank effect. This is when the most extreme voices in a movement actually, weirdly, end up helping the moderates. The radicals go out there and shock everyone, and in doing so, they make the moderate faction's ideas seem tame and totally reasonable by comparison. But man, this is a high-risk, high-reward game. It can work beautifully. During the Civil Rights Movement, the existence of radical groups like the Black Panthers made Martin Luther King Jr.'s nonviolent approach seem like the sensible option for the establishment to work with. But it can also backfire, big time. The slogan, "Defund the police," was arguably so radical that opponents used it to paint the entire reform movement as chaotic and dangerous, which actually made some moderates run in the opposite direction.
Okay, so now that you know the playbook, how do you actually spot these tactics out in the wild? Here's your quick guide for decoding what's really happening behind the political headlines.
All right, here's your cheat sheet. Number 1, always look for the anchor. When you hear a really shocking proposal, ask yourself, is that the real goal, or is it just there to make something else look reasonable? Number 2, listen to the framing. Are they using neutral technical language, or are they using emotionally loaded words? And finally, number 3, watch the extremes. The real action isn't always in the center, it's on the fringes, trying to pull that center in their direction.
And all of this brings us to one final thought. The Overton window is never static. It's always moving, always being pushed and pulled by these exact forces. So the question I want to leave you with is this. What idea that maybe seems radical or even unthinkable to you right now is being slowly, deliberately, and strategically made to feel normal?